but I'm just going to wait maybe 2 more minutes just to see if we get some other folks who join us. So thank you all for being here right at 3, but we'll just hang out for another minute or so to see if some other folks come on the line. I'm assuming hopefully that everybody can hear me. If you want to just nod your head, those that I can see. Okay, thank you, Jennifer, Becca, appreciate that. I think Angela's going to hit the record button too, so we can record for those who want to watch this later on. Get started realizing how important everybody's time is. Just want to say thank you all for joining us here on our second Extension Connection. Microphones aren't muted. Maybe do so just so we don't get feedback and hear probably other conversations. That would be great. I know we're still kind of testing out the system and learning as we're going, as good 4-Hers like to do. But I was really pleasantly surprised at the reactions that I got from people for the first one. From, wow, I can't believe you can talk for 55 minutes straight, which I appreciated very much, to just being interested in what was going on. And again, I appreciate everybody that sat through it all. I'm not going to talk that much during this one. I'm happy that Dennis Harrington is actually joining us from afar and going to be the second part of today's Extension Connections, just talking about the budget situation and our financial items. So we're going to save those towards the end. I do want to remind folks that we will be taking questions. The latter, hopefully 10 or 15 minutes or so, will be questions from you all. We won't guarantee answers now, but we'll do our best and get back to you with more information as well. So just be thinking about that. If there are things that come to mind as either Dennis or I share what we have to share, please jot your question down and we'll either take them by our chat function or just as you shout them out towards the end. So again, we are going to record this, and so make it available for people to watch at their leisure afterwards. Because of the great reaction for the first one, I'm inclined to keep doing these, and again, ask people to join in for part of the discussion, much like Dennis is doing today. Either internal folks to the organization or some external folks from UMaine or the UMaine system who may have something of interest for our extension group as a whole. And I'm always open to comments or suggestions that you may have for people that you would like to hear from. So with that, what did July look like? So today is August 5th, marks my 4th month on the job. I don't know where the first 3 months went. It was certainly has been a whirlwind, and I can't believe that a quarter of the year has gone by. So just as I was thinking about July and putting some of these comments together, I didn't count up the mileage all together, but probably put well over 1,000 miles on several university vehicles over the month. Somebody asked me if I'm plotting on a map everywhere I've been, and I need to go back and do that because I've certainly seen parts of this state I never saw growing up in Maine, and that's been a good thing. So traveled a lot of miles, and I was struck, especially this month 3 on the job. I was struck by, again, people are the center of everything that we do, all our programs, everything really, they're grounded by people and the clients we're serving, our stakeholders, the people, the volunteers, everybody that we come in contact with. And again, I always said this back in my leadership days, I always think people say things way better than I do. So I'm a lover of quotes if you haven't realized that. And I was always struck by the quote, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And by traveling around as much as I am, and maybe July got a little out of control, just because I really wasn't here in my office, I really hopefully showed a lot of people that I really do care about what Extension does and the people in the organization, both internally and externally, And it was, especially as I traveled around and talked to some of our constituents or some of our stakeholders, a lot of people said, wow, I just can't believe you took the time to be here today, or I can't believe you took the time to, come to this, and whatever this is, fill in the blank. So I want to do more of that. And again, just really reminded of that quote. And I think it's a good one that we all keep in mind as we go about, our day-to-day, whatever we're doing within Extension. But my thought for the first 3 months of this job was, again, back before I started, when I had a way different idea of what I thought my first 3 months were going to look like, I thought, oh, the first 3 months, I'll learn all there is to learn about the organization and then move forward from that. And as I was struck with month 3 is learning doesn't have an endpoint. And even learning about Extension in the state of Maine doesn't have an endpoint. I certainly know a lot more than I did my first 2 months. I was pleased that I can walk into Extension offices now and greet people by name, that I can walk into meetings and know people. So I am learning, certainly our folks, which is a good thing, and folks who are important to us throughout the state. But I am struck with the fact that as much as there is still so much to learn. And I put about, not only about Extension here, our Extension organization, and just number one, all the people that work within Extension and everything we do, and the people that we touch across the state, and the potentials for the things that we can do around the state. But then there's the learning about the UMaine system, and then, the big system with the capital S system is, there's a lot to wrap your head around. And I realized that, again, after 3 months on the job, it's going to take me a little bit longer to learn all there is to know. And then, again, I'm not sure we're ever going to get there. I'm never going to get there. But then learning about the state of Maine, and this is what strikes me too, is as much as people say, oh, things don't change in Maine, they certainly do. And it is a different state than when I left it 20-some years ago. And so it's kind of, in a way, nice to have one foot as far as being from here. And given that pass, I think that allows me to enter in conversations a little bit differently if I was from away, but then to also have a different perspective on things. And so, again, my thought for month 3 is, wow, I've learned a lot, but then I still have a ways to go, and it's been a good process. The other thing that struck me, and again, this goes back to my probably leadership development lens, that I tend to look at things, and just bear with me all for this little story and little analogy, but it really has struck me as I have started into this job, and have started now getting a little bit of a routine and knowing a few things. Right before I landed in Florida, or landed in Maine from Florida, I'd heard a story, and I don't know if it was a podcast or what I was listening to, a TED Talk or something, but the researcher was talking about how, on average, and again, stay with me on this one, on average, every day, an adult makes over 30,000 decisions. And if you think about it, we do, but we just don't think about them. We probably know where our toothbrush is in the morning. We know where we hold our car keys. We don't have to memorize phone numbers anymore because our phones all know them, but we know what buttons to push. We're probably not aware of a great majority of the 30,000 decisions that we make a day because we just know those things. And so what struck me is when you start a new job, when you move, when you pretty much upend everything that you know, it's like making 30,000 new decisions a day. Right down to, for the first week, I couldn't find my car keys most mornings leaving to go to work because I didn't have that regular place that they set. Or luckily, I didn't know where my toothbrush was most mornings. But it's been interesting as I learn more about the organization. I've probably asked a lot of questions, and probably people are like, well, she should know that, or why is she asking about this? It's because, again, I'm on that rapid, this is probably the 30,000th decision that I've made today, just because I come from that level of just not knowing. And so Month 3, it's gotten a little bit easier just because I know people a little more. I'm beginning to learn systems and processes and names and those things, but it really is interesting and something that I had never thought of. And so I encourage all of you to think about the decisions that we don't think about making every day. And again, how do we look at things differently, or how do we change our perspectives so maybe we are approaching things in a different manner. So a lot of epiphanies in month 3, just because it was month 3 and I realized that, wow, as much as I can travel and meet folks, there's still so much to wrap my head around, but it's been great. I've enjoyed it. I feel like I've seen a lot of this state through these first 3 months, and certainly look forward to doing more of that. So what did July look like? And again, not going to do the whole grand tour, and if I'm leaving you out, I apologize. I was trying to kind of sum up these a little neater. I got to tour the Rogers Farm and research projects and talk with the sustainable ag folks early in the month, right before the 4th of July holiday. I do feel like, again, if we look at the 2 big ag industries, and certainly we have more than 2, but if we look at our 2 iconic ag industries of blueberries and potatoes, with the blueberry industry, I did get to go to an organic field day, and then certainly went to the blueberry field day at Blueberry Hill Farm. And then skipping ahead, I was able to attend the Maine Potato Board dinner in July, which is part of the Potato Blossom Festival, and then spend a day riding around, meeting with growers, with one of Jim Dwyer's last days with Extension, which was a great day. Just to we made it all the way up to the valley, and it was beautiful to be in potato fields when they're in bloom. So I feel like from that perspective, got to spend some time learning about ag and the ag issues. I am a list maker, and I do like to check off boxes, and now I've been to all 4 of our 4-H camp and learning centers, which I feel like is a great accomplishment. And President Franny Mundy and her new chief of staff, who is Kimberly Whitehead, if you hear that name, she is now the new chief of staff for President Franny Mundy. Both of these ladies went with me to a tour of our Tanglewood and Blueberry Cove 4-H camps and learning centers. And again, just being able to spend the time with President Franny Mundy and Kimberly was great to do. So I now can say I have been to all 4 of our 4-H camp and learning centers. I did do 5 more county office visits, which has been fantastic. Every extension office that I've walked in, I've truly loved spending the time that I have there, but it's so interesting to me that every office is different. Every office has a great and unique personality as an office, and I've just really enjoyed spending time sitting down, talking with folks about what brought them to Extension. I loved some of the responses, and certainly if I haven't been to your office, I look forward to doing so, and just really talking about, you know, what you see as the future of Extension, what drew you to Extension, and the work that you do. Also, within those county office visits, I've been able to tap into visiting programs or having meals with donors or volunteers. I've actually been able to participate in a couple of programs as well. And again, whatever gives me a better idea of the work that you all do, I've really, really enjoyed, and I really want to do some more of that. I was able to go to Maine 4-H days, which wasn't around when I was a 4-H'er, which is really a shame because I think I really would have enjoyed that as a kid, but that's all right. I'll try to get over it. And then one thing I should have said too is just last week I was able to spend some time looking at the 4-H Summer of Science programs as well. And so again, it's been a great month and an epic road trip, that's for sure. To continue, I was able to make my radio and podcast debut last week with Dick Brzezowski and Lonnie Carlson on the Positively Maine podcast. If you want to check it out, Dick and Lonnie have done such great work with our Agribility project, and this was their 4th broadcast on that, and they brought me in just to talk about Extension and my first 3 months on the job and some of those things, and it was great. And then last week, we were able to co-host the July AgCom meeting. And AgCom is a group of industry stakeholders, who represent all of our Maine agriculture across the state. Their July meeting was here on campus. They toured the diagnostic and research lab in the morning and then came to campus and heard about some of the great research that's being done in the School of Forestry and Ag, and really just raved about their time here. And so I'm glad that we were able to do that for them. And then I was appointed to be on the Journal of Extension board, which I wanted to do when they asked if I was willing to do it. And it's something that we're going to talk about probably in upcoming Extension Connections, or talk about as an organization. How do we, with very limited time, find ways to make it a priority to share all the great things that we are doing, both in application and research forums, with the Journal of Extension. Selfishly, I use this journal a lot, both as a graduate student and certainly advising graduate students on their research, because it's such a great avenue to learn about what's happening in Extension, not only across the country, but internationally as well. And so I look forward. I've participated in one conference board meeting since being appointed to the board, and will be at their annual meeting in September. So stay tuned about more of that. But certainly if you have comments or questions, or have had issues in the past, maybe submitting things to the journal, or just wanting to learn more about the process, please reach out to me. Just because, again, this is a different vantage point to see the journal. So again, I'm excited about learning more about that. Last week, I was able to judge exhibits at the Bangor State Fair. And it's not that I'm, giving too much love to rabbits, but that is a line-faced rabbit, and I had never seen one. If you can see my slide, and I was just intrigued by it. And so I figured that was a great visual, especially at this point in time, if I've been talking too much and you just needed something else to look at. And then obviously I have spent some time on campus and have met with several other of the deans here at UMaine. And what I take from that is a great positive, because there are a lot of people who may not understand fully what Extension is and what Extension does, but boy, they're really wanting to reach out and make the connections to Extension. And so I just share that with all of you, just because, again, I'm not sure that Extension is the best kept secret on campus anymore, and I think that's a good thing. Whatever I can do to foster more of those collaborations and connections and discussions with how we can partner, or how we can think about doing our programming with others, I think is a great thing. So I just want to share that all with you. And again, if you have other ideas for how to connect or collaborate with other units on campus, I'm certainly open to them as well. And on a personal note, I always think it's important for folks to understand that administrators do have another life, even though we are here a lot and certainly love our jobs. But I did close on a house in July, and I think that's exciting, because I have been the relative in residence with some family in Old Town, which has been wonderful. But I think on a personal note, just for a sense of stability, it's nice to think about having own space again. So I just share that all with you, because a lot of people have asked, have you found a house? Have you bought a house? Where are you living? Those kind of things. And so I will be a resident of Orono, which is crazy for me to believe, because I was looking at houses far away, but sometimes some of them are right under your nose. So looking forward to moving in a couple of weeks. The other thing I wanted to mention is just kind of looking ahead. What does August have in store? I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go back to Florida, because everybody wants to go to Florida in the beginning of August, because you know how hot it is there? It's, Florida hot. But one of my final PhD students is graduating, and so I get to go participate in graduation and spend a couple of days talking with some mentors of mine back in the University of Florida, and just talking about some things. So I will be south for a couple of days, but I will be back next Monday. I already have a few more county visits scheduled in the month. Looking forward to getting on the road with the food science team to learn about more of what they do and some of Maine's agribusinesses. I do plan on being at Maine Farm Days in Clinton, I think on August 22nd. We'll be participating in the Blueberry Legislative Tour, And also on some things on campus, there's a new faculty orientation and a dean's retreat towards the end of the month, and then get to hopefully take part in another fair. I have the Blue Hill Fair on my calendar. One of the things, and again, realizing time, and want to give Dennis his due, there's one thing I realize it's summertime, and whoops, I forgot about this at the end. Again, Angela and I are still scheduling things, so if there's something you would like me to be a part in, I always have to put this plug here at the bottom. Would love to put it on my calendar, so just reach out to Angela and we'll make that happen. One of my favorite quotes, and I actually pulled this one on Dennis last week, was, "We don't do brain surgery here." I know we do a lot of important things and a lot of important work, but this was one of my favorite quotes in my former job, because a lot of times we get very stressed that we can't take an afternoon off or a day off or time off because nobody's going to be there to do the things that need to be done. And I always counter with, well, we don't do brain surgery, and while the work that we do is really important, nobody is going to die. And so I just want to remind people of that, because it is summertime in Maine, which is, I mean, we are vacation land, I'm reminded of. And so I've heard a lot of folks say, well, I used to take a break, or I used to take some time off. But again, I realize that as a organizational administrator and leader, sometimes it's good just to communicate kind of my thoughts on annual leave and vacation time. Again, I'm taking a few days off this week. I have, I think, accrued now more than 40 hours, but not a few more, but I'm going to take them off and as I said, go spend some time in the South. But I just want to mention this and just give people a gentle nudge that if you haven't taken the time this summer to recharge your batteries, I strongly encourage you to do so. I had forgotten the term going to camp because nowhere in my last 20 years, people didn't understand what that meant. But I love the fact that people have been spending time at camps and at the beautiful spots around Maine. So I just, again, encourage you all to do that if you're able to, and find coverage for your programs. And I look forward to people recharging. My world is always run on semester calendars, it feels like. So I feel like August is always the start of a new year, just because it's a new academic year. You know, students are going to be arriving, kids are going back to school, and it's just like, how do we kind of enter into that kind of rested and rejuvenated? And I hope you all can do so. Just as a reminder, we are going to have a joint meeting between Extension and the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry in Augusta on the 31st. And then certainly just want to keep putting the plug in for what a great organizational meeting we're going to have in November. Again, and that's November 13th and 14th. I strongly encourage everybody to be able to come. I really am impressed with the agenda and the work that the committee's done putting that together. So with that, on my radar screen, certainly continue to travel and look at what's happening around the state and within Extension, and start thinking about moving forward and what the future looks like in Extension. So again, probably in the next month or so, there will be a survey that we're going to send out to our internal Extension group. And results of that survey are going to inform some of my time that I've asked for, excuse me, at our organizational meeting in November. Every time I hear the president speak, she's talking about the new UMaine research and development plan, and actually it's the systems research and development plan, but UMaine's portion of that, and Extension is going to play a key role in that. And so from a strategic planning side of things, I don't envision an Extension undergoing a huge strategic planning exercise anytime in the near future. But as I begin to think about the future of Extension, we're certainly going to look at that already developed plan and to see how we're fitting into it and how we can actually be the leaders of some of the aspects in it. So again, if you haven't seen it, it is online, and we can certainly get you a copy if you would like it. And then on my radar screen, has on the Extension leadership's team, is our budget situation, which I'm happy to turn over to discuss with Dennis Harrington to lead that discussion, and I really appreciate Dennis is actually at a meeting in St. Louis and has just stepped away to join us for this part of the discussion. Thank you, Dennis, for doing so. I will turn it over to you at this point.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I am in St. Louis and I'm at a USDA conference, and what that really means for today is that I've had an extraordinary amount of coffee. That's what you do at conferences, and so if I'm incoherent in any sense, that's my excuse. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Yes, thumbs up, maybe? Good. And I have had, as Dr. Carter was talking to us, I had a couple of internet interruptions. It's hotel internet, so if you lose me, start waving and I will shut up for a moment until we get back together. But if you have attended, if you attended the last Connections update with Dean Carter, you've been expecting word on the Maine budget. She mentioned that we had a potential for a budget coming in FY20. FY20 started on July 1st of this year, so yes, there's budget challenges ahead. We've recently been informed by the UMaine provost that an across-the-board mid-cycle budget reduction will be taking place soon. Across the board means everybody at the university gets it, not just us. And mid-cycle is, of course, mid-fiscal year. This is pretty early in the fiscal year. Maybe that's good because we still have some money unspent here. Next slide, please. So you may already know that we have had one budget cut already. It's been, it was earlier in the year in preparation for FY20. It's $42,441. The mid-cycle budget reduction that we will find out about soon is in addition to that. We don't know the amount yet. We expect it to be significantly higher than $42,441. And we've been negotiating, Dean Carter has been negotiating with the provost, and we hope to hear the final amount this week. Next slide, please. So why is this happening? Why are we getting an additional budget cut, and why is it so big? At this point in time, it's clear that the budget planning predictions were a little overzealous. As it turns out, the UMaine student enrollment is less than estimated. Fewer students have signed up to come to UMaine in FY20. At the same time, fewer past students have signed up to come back. So student retention is something that they predict and track every year to understand how much tuition dollars will be generated. And this year it has shrunk a little bit more than their expectations. So resulting in less tuition means less money and a budget cut to us. So next slide, please. While we were not expecting this, we are prepared, and we'll be funding the reduction in two ways. Sort of the ways we've always done it, which is by giving back position numbers, by position numbers meaning vacancies, positions that we have without anybody fulfilling them right now. We're not going to be rehiring some of our vacant positions. We're going to also reduce some of our spending. And the important part, however, that I want to communicate to everybody today is that at least based on what we know right now and what we believe to be true, there should be no layoffs as part of this budget reduction. And all of the current searches, the active searches right now, will continue. Next slide. What do we know about the future? Preliminary predictions are for a similar budget shortfall next year. We may be in exactly the same position as we're in right now. With that in our potential future, we're going to be managing our budget very conservatively by reducing spending and by carefully considering what positions can be rehired as new vacancies present themselves. So for what it's worth, we've already begun planning for budget year 2021. Next slide. And one more opportunity I'll take beyond the budget to let everybody know that Jared Winery, who works in my office, has taken a position outside of the office. I wanted to let people know because he has been such a point person for grants management, especially in working with our our staff and professionals on generating grants and managing grants. We're happy for Jared and we really wish him well, but it's going to be a stressful vacancy in our office. And I just wanted to let everybody know we're building a new temporary matrix of assignments and responsibilities for operations, which we'll let you know as it gets fleshed out. And there will certainly be some areas of minimized support in our areas, especially around grants. The good news is, of course, we have a very robust Office of Research Administration grants office who can take up a certain amount of that slack. And I've coordinated with their leadership today, and they are ready to go. So I really appreciate your patience on that. And that's all I have. Back to you, Dean Carter.
Thank you very much, Dennis. I know that was a lot for folks to take in. And certainly with that, just again, want to thank everybody for taking the time this afternoon to join in, to hear from us. And certainly we're happy to answer any questions. What I'll do is probably stop sharing my screen so that we can kind of bring up the chat box. But if you want to unmute your microphones and ask questions, feel free to do so. And again, just wanted to kind of end on a positive note because I feel like the budget situation isn't positive at all, but we have a great organization and we have really good people in this organization. And when I first learned of this budget cut, I walked back into the ELT meeting and they said, we can handle this. We've been here before. And I really do believe that we will handle it. We'll handle it well. And we'll still find ways for Extension to hopefully continue to do all the great things it's doing and to even do some more things. So I, again, want to leave this positive note and again, just appreciate the good work that everybody's doing out there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I'm going to find my chat box and certainly open things up. I know Dennis is still on too. Open things up for any questions anybody might have. Just remember, you may need to unmute your microphone.
So this is Donna. Can you hear me all right?
I can, Donna, yes.
Okay, it's actually for Dennis. So what is the, since you can't give the expected cut for Extension, what is the loss in funds that University of Maine has said has occurred? Have they said that?
They have actually said that, and it's a pretty general number, and in some ways it's a little meaningless because it depends on how the budget cuts spread out through the university. As you know, they do it proportionally based on the size of money that they give you, but it is going to be an across-the-board cut. We're all going to get it. They've said it's around $6 million for the University of Maine at this point from their budget calculations. So that's not by any means the biggest number we've ever had to wrestle with at UMaine. You guys remember, some of you remember the toughest budget year of 2014-15. This is not nearly that bad, but it's not pretty either.
And that's for just the Orono campus.
It is University of Maine. It is not system-wide. That's the number for University of Maine, correct.
Thanks.
Thank you, Donna, for the question. And I always want to fill silence, but I do not want to, just because silence makes me nervous. But I also don't want to take up more of your time. I know that, again, this was a lot to digest. I tend to go through things relatively quickly just because there seems to be a lot of good stuff. But certainly as you talk amongst your offices or talk amongst yourselves or think about things, if you have other questions, feel free to just direct them to Dennis or myself or both of us, and we'll try to certainly get you responses as soon as we can. And as soon as we know more about what exactly it's going to look like for us specifically in Extension, we'll certainly share that as well. We've been told to kind of sit back and wait to hear from the upper administration on what this looks like. I see a question. Are there yet any committees or working groups to discuss possible responses? Thank you, Ann, for that. There are not such committees yet because, again, we were just kind of waiting to see where we were at and to think about what this may look like. But I think that's a great question and certainly something to think about moving forward, especially since we are having to think about probably doing the same exercise for the next budgetary cycle. I think it's, and again, nobody likes being the messenger, but when this was talked about in our dean's meeting last week, you know, they couldn't counter much with saying it's going to get better. Because this freshman class that is coming in that is lesser than they thought it would be, we really follow them for 4 years. So we're hopeful that they can get a handle on this and certainly a handle on the retention. But that is something to think about moving forward, is forming some sort of committee to think about how we're going to address this moving forward. Anything else? Oh, we did. We survived. I keep hearing, I've been asking about history lessons as far as what's happened in the past, how these have been handled. Certainly, this isn't as bad as people tell me that it could be. And I want to give a great deal of credit, certainly, to the extension leadership team and folks who have helped me understand what budgets look like in the budget situation and how this all works. And I would have to say, I feel like just from some of the initial responses from the dean's group when the provost was talking about this last week, I think extension is probably in a better shape than some other units on campus. And I say that, I'm glad Dennis is nodding his head, because it just seems to me like, again, I think we're going to be able to be all right through this. It may just mean that, again, some of the things we were talking about possibly trying to do, or positions we were thinking about, may just not happen right yet. But we'll get them figured out. And again, I'm just really thankful that we have some folks who have been through this before to help guide these discussions. The other thing, and this is goes back to just from a personal side of things, and I'm happy. I've been asking this question. It's nothing that anybody has to respond to right now, but if I'm in your office or if you happen to think about it, this goes along the lines with, you know, buying a new house and being a resident here in Penobscot County. I would love to hear how you all find ways to enjoy winter. So that's something to think about, because I realize that we are in what I consider the best time to live in Maine, in these wonderful summer days that we're having. But I really realize that after that is fall, which is also a wonderful season. But how am I going to find ways to love winter? So again, if you have a particular park you like to go to, or a particular thing you love to do, I would love to hear about it from you, just as I think about how I haven't done winter here in about 21 years. So something to think about moving forward. And pretty soon, the first 3 months went by so quickly that another 3 months are going to go by even quicker. So again, something to think about. I had it here in my notes, and I forgot to mention that back about 5 slides ago. So thank you, Angela, for that note about getting a dog. That's on my list of things to do. So if there is nothing else, again, I realize how precious time is. Again, I don't want to cut anything off, but I also don't want to keep people here if they can do other things. So unless anybody else has anything, we'll go ahead and sign off for this one. And I just want to throw a shout out there. Our next Extension Connections would be what is the first Monday of September, which is actually Labor Day. and a 3-day holiday. So I don't expect people to tune in on that Monday, which is a holiday. Just for September, we will move Extension Connections to the next Monday, which I believe is September 9th. So if you want to put it in your calendars, that would be great, just because, again, the first Monday is a holiday. So I really thank you all again for joining in. I hope these are valuable. It's really important to me to try to communicate the best that we can with the entire organization, and I realize how difficult that is to do just because we are so spread out and there is so much going on. Again, and I just want to apologize to anybody if I didn't mention specifically your program area or, you know, person that I met. It has been a whirlwind, and I know I didn't capture everything, but for the sake of time, I wasn't going to just do a calendar dump because it's been quite a month, and I look forward to the month of August being much the same. So again, just appreciate you all very much. I hope you find time and ways to enjoy your summer, and I look forward to seeing you all again on September 9th, if not before. And again, thank you very much for being a part of today or tuning in later if you are watching this being recorded. And Dennis, thank you so much for joining us from St. Louis and sharing what you know about the budget. And again, we will continue to keep you all informed of what's happening. With that, thank you all very much, and have a great rest of your Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.